It is our honor to present the United States National Anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
I want to welcome everyone to the 2021 National HBCU Week Conference. This gathering is an important affirmation of the vital role that HBCUs have played in this country. From Delaware State, which has a special place in my heart, to more than 100 institutions across the country, HBCU graduates are the bearers of a proud tradition. It's a tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King and Thurgood Marshall, of Toni Morrison and Langston Hughes and Ella Baker. And it's a tradition of countless scholars and advocates, leaders of industry, arts, and the sciences, leaders of faith and community. It's a tradition of trailblazers, including the first HBCU graduate elected to be Vice President of the United States, a proud Howard University alum, Kamala Harris. It's a cultural tradition. Step shows, the Divine Nine, homecomings and marching bands, lifelong alumni networks, and academic excellence. It's a tradition rooted in the fundamental belief that quality education is the right that belongs to all people, that every single American should have a chance to go as far as their God-given talents can get them there. My administration is committed to supporting HBCUs in this vital mission. Between funding through my American Rescue Plan or the HBCU debt we discharged in April, we provided over $4 billion in support to HBCUs so far. Now we're looking at additional ways to strengthen support for HBCUs by increasing funding to my budget, by proposing historic investments through my Build Back Better plan, and by relaunching the White House initiative on HBCUs. It comes down to this: a better future for HBCUs is a better future for all of us. Just look at the leadership HBCUs have shown on getting students, staff, entire communities vaccinated. Vice President Harris and I are committed to keeping HBCUs at the forefront of our nation's progress. And I hope you'll use this conference to find new and more effective ways to do that. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for the important work you do. And God bless you all.
A proclamation on National Historically Black Colleges and Universities Week, 2021, September 3rd, 2021. Since 1837, historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, have educated and prepared millions of people to lift up our nation and make their impact on the world. These essential institutions have been critical engines of opportunity for generations of American families. They are incubators of excellence, helping to shape the story of our nation and deliver on the promise of a more perfect union. During National Historically Black Colleges and Universities Week, we celebrate the vital role that HBCUs play in molding Black leaders and ensuring that America continues to move closer to reaching its full potential. From Delaware State, which has always held a special place in my heart, to more than 100 institutions across the country, HBCU graduates are the bearers of a proud and sacred tradition. It is the tradition of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Thurgood Marshall, of Toni Morrison and Langston Hughes, of Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend William Barber. It is the tradition of countless scholars and advocates, leaders of industry, arts and sciences, and leaders of faith and community. It is the tradition of trailblazers, including the first HBCU graduate elected to the vice presidency, Kamala Harris. It is a tradition rooted in a fundamental belief that quality education is a right that belongs to all people, that every single American should have a fair and equal chance to go as far as their God-given talents can take them. Opposition to that belief has been a stain on our nation since its founding. After President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, Black Americans were still subjected to persistent legal and social discrimination. Laws were enacted to stifle their progress, including laws that denied Black Americans access to the same educational opportunities as white Americans. Across the generations since, progress has been won. Racial segregation of public schools was struck down by the Supreme Court in a case successfully argued by HBCU graduates. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited discrimination in public accommodations and federally funded programs. Over time, hearts and minds have been changed. For more than 180 years, HBCUs have been on the forefront of that progress. Still, the wound and the reality of systemic racism remains. We see it in our education system, our labor force, our healthcare system, our criminal justice system, and in so many other corners of our society. We see it in the COVID-19 pandemic, which revealed and exaggerated long-standing disparities in areas like food security, internet access, and medical care. For Black women and girls, LGBTQ+ Black Americans, and Black Americans with disabilities, we see it compounded with other forms of discrimination and bias. As they have throughout their existence, HBCUs have risen to the occasion to serve their students and communities over the last year and a half, helping to develop breakthrough treatments, hosting life-saving COVID-19 vaccination sites, and nurturing movements of justice and equality. My administration stands with HBCUs and is committed to the fundamental American promise they represent, that all of us are created equal and have a right to be treated equally throughout our lives. Too many times throughout our history, we have allowed a narrow, cramped view of that promise to fester. The false idea that America is a zero-sum game of opportunity, where a person can only lift themselves up by holding others down. It is critical that we shed that flawed way of thinking and finally embrace what we know to be true. That when any one of us is held back, we are all held back. And when we lift each other up, we are all lifted up. The defining idea of America is why I issued an executive order on my first day in office, establishing a whole of government approach to equity and racial justice. It is why I have built the most diverse cabinet in history, why I am appointing Black judges to the federal judiciary at a historic rate, and why we are continuing to build an administration that truly looks like America. It is also why we will continue to support HBCUs and their vital mission. Imagine how much more creative and innovative America would be if our HBCUs had the same funding and resources as other institutions, allowing young people from every community to compete for jobs and industries of the future. To help make that a reality, my administration has proposed approximately $239 million in new institutional aid for HBCUs in the Department of Education budget for next year, including $72 million in new discretionary funding for HBCUs. In addition, my administration has proposed approximately $167 million in new mandatory funding for HBCUs, and to provide 2 years of subsidized tuition and expand programs in high-demand fields at HBCUs. I, today, signed an executive order establishing the White House Initiative on Advancing Educational Equity, Opportunity, and Excellence through Historically Black Colleges and Universities, which will create a government-wide approach to support the needs of HBCUs and the communities they serve, and eliminate systemic barriers impeding HBCU participation in federal programs. This is only the beginning of our work to support HBCUs and the remarkable students they empower and grow. This week and every week, we will continue to celebrate and advance the historic and ongoing success of our HBCUs, because we know that their success is America's success. Now, therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim September 5th through September 11th, 2021, as National Historically Black Colleges and Universities Week. I call upon educators, public officials, professional organizations, corporations, and all Americans to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities that acknowledge the countless contributions these institutions and their alumni have made to our country. In witness whereof, I have hereto set my hand this 3rd day of September in the year of our Lord 2021, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 246. Joseph R. Biden Jr.